Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Joe DeRamo of My Pinnacle Network, and this is part of our My Pinnacle Network webinar series that we try to do on a semi-regular basis, typically once a month. And our featured speaker this month is Barry Braunstein of Barry Braunstein Commercial Photography, who also doubles as a LinkedIn expert. Just a little bit about My Pinnacle Network before we get going. My Pinnacle Network is a B2B networking organization. We have 4 virtual locations, Needham/Newton, Mansfield, Marshfield, and Westboro. I run the Westboro group. My partner, Steve Dubin, is also on the call. He runs Mansfield and Marshfield. He's in charge of the fields. And we're monthly groups. We meet, it's for B2B folks or businesses whose customers are other businesses. In terms of other types of webinars that we do, we have what's called a Coffee with the Coaches series, which is run by one of our business coaches. The next one of those is on March 12th. That's the featured speaker is Ed Grant of the Alternative Board. And next month, we're trying something a little different. It's not really part of the series, but it's a course called How to Write Emails Using Smart Brevity Techniques, and I'll be teaching that. That's on February 27th, and we'll be putting out emails. I definitely can't do Barry Braunstein's bio as much justice as he can. But Barry is a commercial photographer who specializes in headshots. And in a previous life, he was in high-tech sales. And as he mentioned earlier, if you arrived at 9 o'clock, Barry was one of the first 100,000 people to actually sign up for LinkedIn, which, considering it now has billions, that's quite an impressive thing to state. So I'm going to let Barry kind of take over the presentation. In a second, I'm just going to ask Steve Dubin, my partner, if he's got anything for the intro that I might have missed before we turn it over to Barry.
No, Joe, you might want to, though, talk about the upcoming Ninja Networking Awards and a live event.
Yeah, I sort of didn't bring that up. We do have one of the things our group does is we have an annual awards ceremony, which I don't know of other networking organizations that do awards. We do in a live event. It's February 27th at La Cantina in Franklin, Massachusetts. I know not all of you are in the area, but if you are, we'll put a link in the chat during the course of the meeting if you want to sign up for that. It's $10 to attend. We are sponsoring it with another organization, the Middlesex Insurance Organization. And it's put on by the Heart of Massachusetts, which is a great organization. They typically get 100 folks or more to their event. It's from 5:30 to 7:30. And one of the people being honored is our speaker, who I'll turn it over to now. Barry was, for those of you who are here and know Barry, you won't be surprised. He was awarded the most ubiquitous. And for those of you without a thesaurus, that means he gets around to a lot of different places. So I've known him from a couple of different organizations, so Barry gets around. Let's just put that out there, and from there we'll take it. So during the course of Barry's presentation, if you have some questions, put them in the chat. I'll relay those to Barry so that he can answer during the course of the presentation, and we will have plenty of time later for Q&A. So Barry, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you. If everybody could just mute themselves during the presentation, and it's all yours, Barry.
That's great. Thank you, Joe. Can everybody hear me okay? Because something looked like my microphone changed. We're okay. Great. All right. Well, thank you, Joe, for the great introduction. As Joe said, my name is Barry Braunstein, Barry Braunstein Photography. I'm a headshot and portrait photographer for individuals and businesses creating headshots you'll actually love. So as Joe mentioned, actually had a high-tech 40-year career in high-tech sales and marketing. I started my business back in 2016. I've been, as Joe mentioned, I've been using LinkedIn ever since its inception. And I've used it to find jobs, find clients, to network, to promote my business, to do research, to learn. I think it's probably the most powerful networking platform out there, particularly for B2B. There's not a lot of junk on it. It's usually apolitical. In fact, the LinkedIn police are pretty good about keeping politics out of it. And there's not a lot of, at least from what I've seen, there's not a lot of untruths and things like that. It's pretty well focused and managed. So I'm a big fan of the platform. So for those of you who may not be familiar with all of the aspects of LinkedIn, it's a networking, sales, marketing tool. It's a database of businesses. It's a database of resumes. It's a job search engine. It's a business-oriented social media platform. It's an advertising platform, although pretty expensive. It's a way of reaching out to people, groups, companies, being part of communities and things like that. But again, all focused on business. And actually now it's part of Microsoft. It's been part of Microsoft for since 2016. So LinkedIn was actually launched in 2003. As Joe mentioned, it's got over 1 billion members. Interestingly enough, a lot of those users are outside the United States. This was a surprising statistic for me when I found out about it. Over 50 million people use it for job search. So it's a very good place for job search, not just for looking for jobs that are posted, but also for researching potential companies, for connecting with people at those companies, or finding decision makers and things like that. And it's pretty heavily used. About almost 50% of users in the US use it once per month. And if you think about, how many people are on it and the breadth of titles and positions and everything of people that are on it, that's pretty good. By the way, if you have your own business or are part of another company, you can have a business listing. It's free. And those companies see 5x more page views. In other words, you'll be out there and you'll be more visible if you have a company page. And if you're posting, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, putting images in your post, you'll get also a higher comment rate, which means you get more visibility, etc. So that's something to keep in mind. And then finally, there's an app for smartphones and tablets. If you haven't downloaded it and you plan on using LinkedIn, I'd strongly urge you to do that. You can set it up so that you get notified when somebody messages you or even comments on a post that you've made and everything. And it's just a good way of keeping connected. You can follow people on it. It's a pretty good app, and I use it regularly as well. So I'm on LinkedIn every day. I'm a LinkedIn junkie. It's one of the first things I do in the morning is check my feed, check my messages, all of those things. And my market is primarily B2B and business professionals, individuals. So I use it to promote and generate awareness. And by the way, it's free to do that. I do that via posting 1 to 2 times per week. I also respond to posts in my feed because LinkedIn algorithms likes that. They like to see that you're active on the platform. I also use it to connect with current and potential clients. So everyone who I shoot, I reach out to them and connect to them. So I have somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 connections right now. Do I know all of them? No. But I'm pretty judicious about who I connect with and who I don't, right? I get a lot of inquiries from overseas retouchers, for example, and I just ignore those. but other people that connect, if I've known them or they're a friend of somebody or a relationship, or they say they got referred to me or whatever, or they could be a potential partner or a client, I'll connect with them. And I also use it for research when I'm targeting companies or targeting industries, or just looking for partners and things like that. Or if I get an inquiry, either from a business or an individual, one of the first things I do is go to their LinkedIn profile to see who they are, et cetera, and get to know them a little bit before we start any kind of engagement. All right, so let's go to, there's a number of things that you can do on LinkedIn, right? Some of the things that have worked for me is to consistently post valuable business-oriented information, right? You don't post things like, hey, I had a great breakfast the other day at Swashbucklers or whatever it is, right? Keep it business focused. Make valuable connections, right? I think it's quality versus quantity, although you don't want to be too selective. On the other hand, you don't want to connect with everybody and their uncle who wants to connect with you. Very important that you create and maintain a well thought out, well done LinkedIn personal profile. I can't emphasize this enough because people will check you out. And that profile is going to create an impression. It's going to give them, it's like a resume. It's going to give them an overview of who you are, what you do, where you're coming from, all of those things. So really give some thought to and make sure you have a good profile. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. You want to create that business profile. Again, if you're a solopreneur, you have a company, it's free. And then set aside some time every day just to scan or comment on posts and everything, even repost articles that you think are valuable to your feed, because LinkedIn is all about a community and your feed and how many people are viewing your posts, and the algorithm will actually take your post and spread it to a wider audience if it sees that you're doing certain things and you're active. And then finally, again, I use it as a sales and marketing tool. I've subscribed to their premium service called Sales Navigator. It's a very powerful tool. It's about $700 or $800 a year, I think. I've been a subscriber to that for a long time, and it's definitely paid off. And I'll show you some of the features that I think make Sales Navigator just a wonderful tool to use. So I post on a regular basis. Some people post more than I do. Some people post less. But I look at it as a subtle email drip campaign, but less obtrusive, right? I don't know about you, but I'm getting inundated with emails all the time from various groups and companies and whatever. And a lot of the times I'm hitting the delete button. And eventually, if I get really annoyed, I'll unsubscribe, okay? LinkedIn has a similar effect, assuming your audience is on LinkedIn and reading their feed, because it will take your post and put it into your connections feeds and other people's feeds. But it's more subtle because there's no really, I mean, you can unfollow somebody, but I haven't seen a lot of that happening. So it's a way of being top of mind. It's a way of generating awareness for your business and everything. And I've gotten business from individuals and businesses saying to me, hey, I've seen your posts on LinkedIn. I love your work, love your approach. Hey, we have a project we'd love to see if you could help us with. So again, and it's free. It's like advertising. But I think it's a valuable thing to do. And it also gives you the opportunity to position yourself as a content matter expert. And that's pretty key, that you have experience in everything. So you want to post things that are educational and informative, not necessarily tooting your own horn, right? So LinkedIn allows you to post in several ways. So you can do a post which is up to 3,000 characters. That's for your personal page and company pages. You can do articles which are longer, right? Either can include images and video, links to outside websites. Polls are becoming very popular, or announcements on events such as this one. Joe used LinkedIn to announce this event. And then I took that and put it in my feed so that people who were in my feed could also be aware of it. So the posts show up in feeds as well as on your personal and business profiles. You don't have to do that. LinkedIn does that automatically for you. And posts appear to get more reach versus articles, which makes sense because, we're in this kind of instantaneous world where people have an attention span of not very long. So, a post is something that people will react to more so than an article.
Barry, we did have one question, and it's a little unrelated, but I'll ask it anyway. Can you see if someone unfollows you? Which I'm assuming that means a company page as opposed to a connection.
No, it could be a personal page. I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Can I chime in here? The only way you'd find out is if you did extensive research to see who's not there anymore. But there's no stain somewhere that says, Joe DeRamo no longer likes you.
Yeah, and if I use my if I use myself as a litmus test, which may or may not be valid, I don't remember ever unfollowing somebody, unless it's somebody who I had a run-in with or whatever, a disagreement with and got whatever. So I don't think there's any harm in posting, and it's just if you're getting a lot of followers and everything like that, losing one is probably not going to be the end of the world. So again, posting, it gives you visibility. It can lead to connections, leads. I've gotten people reach out to me, potential partners, etc., reach out to me and said, "Hey, I saw your post in my feed. Let's get connected and stuff." You can use it for input and reactions. Some people use that as a strategy, and it's a way of building a relationship. Again, you're positioning yourself as a thought leader, a content matter expert. I don't know this definitively, but I think it does impact your SEO. Certainly your SEO on LinkedIn. If you're looking for visibility on the platform, the more you post, the more LinkedIn's algorithms are going to take that post and share it beyond just your network, which is one of the goals, at least that I have for posting. And of course, your network will likely see your post, and it's that way of subtle, just, hey, I'm still here kind of advertising, right? And promotion. So, I'm a big fan of content, and a lot of other businesses and companies are following suit. So, what to post? We think that LinkedIn is evolving its algorithms here, and so they're favoring educational, thought-provoking posts versus sales pitches, right? I've done a combination of showing examples of my work, highlighting businesses that I've worked with, as well as educational posts on what makes a great headshot and stuff. And those seem to be getting a fair amount of traction. So you want to post content that's educational. It shows your expertise, solving common problems or issues, different approaches to solving those problems, some informational stuff, not too well-known facts, some how-tos or whatever. But again, don't make it as a pure sales pitch, right? The fact that you're posting and you're demonstrating your expertise is the sales pitch, and it's more subtle. And you want to avoid politics, religion, or anything that is, I'll put this in quotes, better posted on Facebook, like where you spent your vacation and stuff like that. How often to post? This is, again, there's a lot of debate on this. It's the more the better, but don't overdo it. I wouldn't necessarily post more than once a day. I probably post at least once a week. Some other questions. Does LinkedIn penalize you for posting a link to other websites? That's unclear. If you asked me that a year ago, the answer would have been probably. Now it doesn't seem that they're doing that. Other things to do is, do you want to post on both your personal and your business page? If you have it and it can be the same post, that's fine. When I post, by the way, I post it on my LinkedIn personal, my LinkedIn business, my Facebook, my Instagram, my blog, my Google business page. I use the same post, and you don't get penalized for that. I've talked to enough people who are SEO experts in particular who say they see no indication that you're getting penalized for using the same post. So repurposing your post is something that you can do, right? And then also you can post, if you belong to groups on LinkedIn, and that's something you may want to consider, you can share that post, a link to your post, to that group, those groups. So I belong to a number of different groups, and I just paste when I'm doing a post on LinkedIn to these other groups. So just a recent example of a post that I did, I'm not going to go through this obviously, but it was just a description of, why black and white is appropriate and what the differences are between black and white and color and their impact, etc., from a recent client of mine. And this post got over 3,000 views. Okay. If you belong to the premium subscription, you can see demographics on where this post was shared by industry, title, location, geography, etc. And that's helpful information as you can see what LinkedIn is doing with your posts and how it's sharing it amongst your community. And that's also can be helpful as you develop your strategy. All right. Another aspect of LinkedIn is making connections. And this is one of the things that's been around probably the longest. The more connections, the better, as long as they're, again, with quality. It means more reach and visibility for your feeds. You're closer to potential decision makers, influencers. So again, I balance this quantity with quality. I don't accept every connection request. And when I send out connection requests, I don't expect, I mean, it would be nice, but I don't expect everyone to connect with me either. I use it primarily as a form of cold calling, but since I hate cold calling, this to me is a more subtle, more comfortable thing for me to do, which is how to build a database and a following, right? So I will reach out to cold contacts, first of all, and do a research on their LinkedIn profile to see, do we share any common connections? And if we do, I mention that in the request to connect. Those connection requests have a much higher percentage of acceptance than just a pure cold outreach. Okay. I also can use it as a referral type of thing, right? Which is, hey, so-and-so suggested that I connect with you, etc. And usually there's a call to action there is, would you be interested in scheduling a call for, a one-to-one or something like that? And those are pretty good strategies as well. So there are, by the way, services that you can contract with to go out and build connections for you. I don't recommend them. I've heard stories of LinkedIn putting people in the penalty box, basically shutting down their account for weeks at a time if they catch you doing that. So I've avoided those kind of services like the plague. Whoops. So I mentioned earlier that if you're going to use LinkedIn, whoops, let me just see. Okay. So I thought that was something that I was doing. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a premium subscriber, meaning that, and I subscribe to something called Sales Navigator. And Sales Navigator is basically a powerful networking database search tool to to help you build and research companies, build lead lists of businesses and decision makers. You can sort it by industry, by size of company, geography, title. There's so many powerful search things that you can do with it, including building up a complicated one like, give me connections of specific people or second degree connections that you have in certain industries with certain titles. So if I wanted to target marketing managers at law firms in Boston area, that's easy for me to do in LinkedIn. And I can even then refine it by who are connections of the following people, right? And that's going to help me build a very powerful list to target people that know somebody who I've done work for. Okay. I don't know any other tool on the planet that can do that for you as a salesperson or a marketing person. So when I'm sending out connection requests, I give a short description of what I do that's relevant to their job or their company. And then I basically say I'm welcoming the opportunity to connect. I do not hound them with follow-up emails. I don't give them a sales pitch really when I'm doing that. I just want to get them connected so that they can start to see my feed and that they're becoming more aware of my work and what I do and the value that I can bring, right? And again, I've got evidence and a number of stories where companies have contacted me or individuals have contacted me saying, I've seen your posts and I really need to update my headshot, or we need to update our team headshots and everything. So it's a real subtle way of advertising and building up a following and stuff. So to me, it's powerful. Go ahead.
We have a question in the chat from Debbie saying, I cannot connect to people with writing them a note. Has something changed on LinkedIn? I think
that I'm.
Yeah, I think you need to make a connection request, and then you have the option to add a note as opposed to just messaging them, I think.
Right. That's correct. The other thing is that there are limits as to how many people you can contact or even message or connect with each month or each week. Premium subscribers have a larger ceiling in that area. But yeah, that's how I do it, Joe, is via a connection request and then adding a note. Exactly. All right, back to Sales Navigator. So Sales Navigator to me is one of the most powerful tools I've run into. It's basically gives you unlimited search. If you're a non-premium subscriber, you're pretty limited in terms of how far removed you can build a lead list or search for people. Whereas Sales Navigator, you can search till the cows come home. It doesn't matter if they're 3, 4, 5 degrees away from you. They have really sophisticated search and research capability by function, title, revenue, location, industry, keywords, etc. You can then build lead lists for people, for those criteria. You have more in-mails to send direct messages to those people. You also get more analytics on your posts, and the system every week will send you what it believes are potential good leads for you. So, I don't know all of the details. I haven't been able to figure out how to refine that. So you can tell the system, I'm really interested in this, that, and the other thing. I don't know that there is a way. But every week I get a link in my inbox that says, here's a bunch of system generated leads that we think might be worthwhile for you. And so I go through that and I try and reach out to those people and stuff. Sometimes it's really worthwhile, sometimes not. But again, it's just something else that they provide. And as I said, it's a little under $800 a year. So this is an example of a search that I did recently where using Sales Navigator, where, and you can see, by the way, all of the different criteria here, and this is a subset of actually all of the things you can search on. But in this search, I wanted to search companies in Greater Boston, somebody who's a marketing person, who's a second degree connection to me. And again, the geography is in Greater Boston. And this gave me over 2,000 results, right? So I can then go in and refine this. Let's say I want to narrow this down to the legal industry or biotech or software development or what have you. I can go off and do that. That will obviously shrink the number of people that I have. And then if I want to plug in connections of, I can put in specific people. So it makes it easier for me to figure out who might be a connection of somebody who's already a client of mine that I can reach out to and say something like, you know, hey, we share a common connection to so-and-so. I just did their headshots for their team, you know, would either welcome the opportunity to connect, or, you know, if I visited their website, I may reference that and then, you know, go into something more, a little bit less than a sales pitch, but more about, hey, would you be interested in a conversation, right? But again, the tool allows you to do that, and that to me is a very, very powerful tool. So again, I can refine my search to second degree connections with specific titles or connections of people that I know. And so this is an example of what I did, taking that search and refining it and saying there are connections of a client of mine, and it generated this list of people that I could reach out to and say, hey, you know, we share a common connection to so-and-so. I just shot their firm. You know, this happens to be a law firm search that I'm doing, right? And now I have people that I can reach out to with something that, you know, we might share a connection, and, you know, it's better than just pure cold calling. So again, a very, very powerful tool if that's something that you want to do. All right. So let me just digress a little bit and say, you know, when I really got started with Sales Navigator, this was before I started my photography business. I was working in industry. I was working for an engineering services firm. And I started, you know, was looking for new clients. So I did some research and I found a firm, happened to be Keurig, the coffee maker people. I went on their 10K. I read a little bit about their company. From what they said in their 10K about their development process and everything, it looked like we could be a good match. And now I'm stuck with, all right, so how the hell do I get into a company like Keurig, right? So I went on to LinkedIn and I did some searching, and I found out who the key engineering senior executives were, who were the decision makers, I thought. And then I found out how I was connected to those people. And it turns out I had some pretty decent connections. So I reached out using those common connections and saying, hey, you know, we share a common connection to so-and-so. I did some research on your company. Here's a little something about what we offer. It looks like that we may be able to provide some valuable services for you, or whatever it was, right? My first meeting there then was with 7 vice presidents, took them as a client from nothing to multiple millions of dollars in less than a year. I would have not been able to do that as easily had I not had LinkedIn to show me how to, you know, who I was connected to and how to leverage that to get a meeting with these people. So, and I'm not the only one. I didn't invent this. I've talked with other people in similar industries in high tech who've done a similar thing using LinkedIn. It's just a very, very powerful tool for doing that kind of sales targeting and reaching out for folks. So, all right. I think we're sort of winding down here. So, as I said earlier, you know, having a good profile page is really important. So before you start, though, you want to determine what your goals are for your profile page, right? If you're doing a job search, are you doing reputation management? Are you doing prospecting and everything? Because when people visit that page, you want them to come away with something that's, basically, they're going to either do something or have an impression or understanding of what you do relevant to what you want them, what you're looking for, right? And so you can change your profile based on what it is that you happen to mode to be in, right? If you're in growth mode versus job search mode versus whatever. You also want to think about who your target audience is. Who do you want to target with your profile? Who do you want people to read your profile? And then what your primary message is, right? What do you want them to come away with? The impression. And also, how do you want to use LinkedIn based on all of those functions? That's really important because it's more than just an electronic database or resume of your background. You're having the opportunity to basically use it as a website for you and or your business and your brand. So you want to think about what you're putting in there, particularly in certain areas, so that the viewer is coming away with the impression and the takeaways that you want them to come away with. So as part of that, keywords matter because it is a database and there is a form of SEO within LinkedIn. So, you want to look at your elements like your headline, the about section, the skills and endorsements section, your job titles, your job descriptions, and make sure that you don't want to stuff it with keywords, but you want to make sure that the right keywords are in there so that the database engine will pick it up when people are doing searches in LinkedIn. And people are using LinkedIn to search, not just for candidates for jobs. They're looking to LinkedIn to search for titles, to search for people with certain expertise, etc. Right? You also want to be sure to include or fill out areas. Your profile picture, really important. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. The background photo, the headline and the industry, your location, and contact info. Really important if you want to use this as a marketing tool to make sure that you make it easy for people to reach you and know who you are and what you do. The headline is really important. That's the piece at the top. And you want to have something that grabs the viewer's attention, just like the homepage on your website, that clearly states what you do, what your title is. Ideally, if you can differentiate yourself, that would be great. And again, have those keywords in there to make sure that the database and search engine can find you. In the about section, I think it's a good idea to write in the first person. Again, you want to grab the reader's attention. You want to have highlights of your career, high-level summary and accomplishments, high-level value that you provide to your clients, if that's what you're doing. And now is not the time to be shy about this, right? You don't have to do it in a boastful way. You can do it in a factual way. And don't get too far down into the weeds, but enough so that people would read your profile and say they want to take the next step and contact you and reach out and learn more, or go to your website if that's your goal. It's not going to sell them for you. It's going to move them along the funnel from one step to the next. So that's how to think about what you're putting in your about section. And then if you want to list your employment and experience, again, keywords are key. Keep it short sentences, short accomplishments, be specific. And you don't need to list everything you did at each position, just your highlights. And then the further you get away that you get from your current position, the less information you really need to have. Don't make it into a real long tome. And then also just be sure to fill in your education, your interests, any certifications that you have. Always get and give recommendations. You know, writing posts and articles, those will show up on your profile automatically. So that's also a good thing. I'm just really just skimming the treetops here. If you're really serious about this, there are a number of consultants that do this for a living. There's also a very good book put out by Donna Serdula called LinkedIn Profile Optimization for Dummies. It's the second edition. I recommend it. It's on Amazon and maybe at your local library. And it gives a good solid overview and, you know, more details about each section and how to update your profile if that's something that's of interest. So one last thing. As I mentioned, people will check you out on LinkedIn. I do it all the time. I know people are doing it for me and stuff. And studies have shown that the first thing they see when they hit your LinkedIn profile is going to be your profile image. And a first impression is created when somebody looks at an image of your picture. That first impression is created in as little as 80 milliseconds. And if you think about it, that impression is here as they're reading the rest of your profile. So if that first impression isn't really positive, or it's a blurry picture, or it's a cutout from your cousin's wedding, you know, when you were holding a beer or something like that, not a good look, right? That's because that's going to serve as the lens through which the rest of your profile is viewed and understood. And the same is true for your website and your about page. If you have a website, you know, people are going to go check you out. They want to see who you are. And you do want to have an image in your LinkedIn profile as well as on your website, because it makes you real, number one. And number two, LinkedIn studies have shown that the people who have profile images get more views and more engagement than those who don't. So really good idea to have a high quality profile image. So whether it's with me or someone else, having a professionally done profile is really important. The selfie isn't going to do. The iPhone done by a friend in the parking lot or whatever is just not going to do. You know, if you look at the images on the left versus the images on the right, I think it's pretty obvious which creates the best first impression rather. And, you know, it's your business. It's you. You want it to be current. You want it to be a good look for you. The lighting has to be right. The expression needs to be right. So have it done by a professional headshot photographer. It's worth the investment. You should do it every 3-ish or 5 years or so. Or if your face has changed a lot, or you're now sporting a beard or whatever, you know, you really want to have that to be current and to be professionally done. I can't overemphasize that enough. Again, whether it's with me or anyone else, you really should have it done. And that's
all right. We got to that part of the meeting. It's time for questions. People can either put it in the chat or they can raise their hand and ask a question. I see Connor has got a question. Connor, go ahead.
Barry, thanks for doing this. A lot of great information there. Just curious, you know, trials and tribulations with doing the cold calling, if you will, or using Sales Navigator, right? You mentioned that you do like to reach out to people that you don't know that often, but you also don't like to, you know, hound them with follow-up. So just a little insight into maybe what's some of the verbiage that you're using, or, you know, when do you try to get it off of LinkedIn and do that one-on-one, and when are you just satisfied with just having the connection with that individual?
Yeah, great question. So the verbiage is pretty straightforward. You know, for me, it's if we share a common connection, those are the most powerful. So I will say, you know, we share a number of common connections. Hi, so-and-so. We share a number of common connections, including so-and-so who happens to be a client of mine. I'm a headshot photographer providing distinctive headshots that amplify my client's branding. I'd welcome the opportunity to connect. Period. End of story. Right. And then again, if I look at the statistics, the people who I send that out to where we share a common connection, those have a much higher connect rate. And once they connect, then I follow up and say, thanks for connecting. I hope you find my posts on headshots and branding informative. Period. End of story. Because I don't believe in hounding people. I want to be visible. I want to be there. And if I happen to see their website and it's in real need of some updating and stuff, I might reach out to them softly, but more often than not, I just kind of leave it alone and let the organic stuff do its magic. Because I think people will buy, at least for the way I like to approach things, when people are ready and they're interested, and I'm visible, they like my work and stuff, they'll see me. So other people are more, doing cold calling and everything. If it works for them, that's great. It doesn't work for me.
Okay, Barry, we've got questions from a couple of Steves. First, Steve Dubin.
Yeah, I guess I'll pose it to you, Barry. So we use seamlessai.com that connects to LinkedIn and allows us to obtain full contact information for that individual, even and often not listed in LinkedIn. So it goes out to the internet and it finds that information, and we use Sales Navigator as well to do that initial segmentation of whether it's HR directors or property managers or physiatrists. And we're able to then download that information and use it for contact, like a email drip campaign. Typically, it's a 3 drip campaign over 9 days. Or we could use it to make phone calls, or we could even do a postcard campaign. Your thoughts on that?
If it works for you, that's great. I'm not opposed to doing that. I think it works for some businesses and not others. I'm just not a big fan of email drip campaigns. Maybe it's because some of the people that I saw and the way they were doing it wasn't done in a way that I thought was effective, and was frankly annoying. So that's a philosophical thing, but I think the key here is that that the Sales Navigator combined with the AI tool that you're talking about, and I've got a similar tool I think that I've signed up for. It's free, and it'll give you a limited number of you can select which contacts and it'll go out and do the same thing, figure out the email address and everything. And frankly, if I wanted to do that, I could do that as well. That's obviously a time saver. So if you want to build the email lists and do that kind of thing, absolutely. I just haven't done that probably because I'm a curmudgeon and I've never done that in my entire career, because it was more one-to-one kind of selling and stuff. So it's not something that I do.
Just a quick note: there's no shortage of curmudgeons on this screen. And then, secondly, if we do a drip campaign and we really carefully evaluate what kind of information and how we're going to share that, because there are a lot of elements involved, and an important one is how good is the content that we're sharing, and how subtle and useful it is. So thank you for your input.
All right. Well, certainly somebody who's not a curmudgeon, Steve Mason. And you have to unmute, but
can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. Hey, Barry, how are you? Thanks for doing this. This is great. Sorry I came on late. So I'm curious. I mean, I use LinkedIn a lot as a tool for research. In other words, I'll go to a manufacturing trade show, for instance. I'll have a bunch of cards of people I want to talk to, so I'll connect with LinkedIn, send them an invite, and hopefully get the conversation going, etc. But I never thought of LinkedIn for personal use, because that Facebook does that in a way. It's more family and friends and politics. It's all the crap I want to keep away from. LinkedIn is a great, dichotomy between the two. To me,
Yep.
they're opposites. And I hate when I see a lot of political rants and stuff on LinkedIn. But I'm curious, what's the value out of a personal LinkedIn page as opposed to a business LinkedIn page?
So when I say personal LinkedIn page, I mean your individual, profile about you.
Oh,
There's a separate page called the business one that for me is Barry Braunstein Photography. Right. And it doesn't have my resume or anything in it. It's more about the business. So the way you can find out what that looks like is if you go to anyone's profile and they have a company listed, click on that company that's in their employment, their where they worked and stuff. And that will generally take you to the company business page if it exists. But you can create that even if you're a one person operation, you can create that business page yourself for your business. So that's what I mean by personal. It's not personal as in Facebook kind of, posting. Most people, most businesses will post on both. And clearly the personal pages are getting a lot more, people use that a lot more than they use their business pages.
okay.
All right, thank you, Barry. I think we're kind of wrapping down. We have time for maybe one more question. So does anybody have one before we say goodbye? And I don't see any hands going up. So I'm going to say, Barry, thank you very much for your presentation. It was incredibly thorough. For those of you who came late or left early, we'll put out an follow-up email with this, and we will include a link to the video so you can look at it again. And I did try to use the transcript tool today, so there might be that might be available. Again, look for messages from us for upcoming webinars. Barry, any last thoughts? Oh, Steve, you have one more question?
Actually,
No, I'm all set.
a quick, wrong, Steve. A quick note. I went into the AI version of this just to scope it out because I've never seen one on Zoom before, and it has action items. So you click on that, and it says no action items. And I'm thinking the next time I do something like this, maybe I'll phrase what I'm about to say as this might be an action item. So other people who at the end are looking for a synopsis of action items will have something that's definitive. So it may be a way to use this more in a more articulated way.
Barry? Thank you, Steve.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad it was useful, and go out there and happy selling.